Hey, you out there. I just want you to know that I care about your fantasy team. I actually do.
That's such a departure. Normally, like this time of year is the time for hot takers to go, you know what? I don't care about your fantasy team. Nobody cares about your fantasy team. I only care about mine.
In that case, I'll tell you about mine. Guys, I reached on someone in the third round.
Oh, tell me all about it. Yeah.
I think he's got a new quarterback, a number one receiver. I think he could really...
Oh, Jerry Jeudy?
No.
Oh, wow.
That would have been early.
That would have been early on Jerry Jeudy.
That would have been
all the way in.
That would have been early, I believe, for Jerry Jeudy. A little too early.
I think he's wide receiver one.
This guy.
I think he's wide receiver one.
But a pretty
low. Overall?
No, for Denver. Like I see Cortland Sutton going ahead of him. I disagree. Yeah. Very crisp route runner. I love Jerry Jeudy.
Give us more hints.
He is the second generation of his name.
For some reason, the only junior that's coming to hit is Patrick Surtain. But
it's Michael Pittman Jr.
Oh, okay. Wow, I'm high on him. Good answer.
Good answer. I know it's a reach. At third round might be a reach, but it's like, hey, I don't know if he's going to be there on the way back. You know that feeling where it's like, this is a little early for this guy. I had the 5th pick of a 12-team league, so it was like coming in the third round. I didn't want to wait.
Let me tell you something that I just discovered. I have a premium subscription to one of these fantasy sites, and it has like a live draft supplement. And for the first time ever, they unveiled historical data to help you draft. Meaning it went back into the past of other people's tendencies during a draft. So I know whether or not they're going to reach on a tight end or not because they never have before. It was incredible.
Right, because there's this one. There's always the one guy in your draft that's a complete wild card.
Yep.
They'll take Patrick Mahomes 10 picks too early because they're going to go all in on quarterback that year. There's always the guy who you can't predict that doesn't fit. And when you do all these mock drafts and shit, there's no predicting that one guy in your league. Yeah. And so you have their history. I'm sure that's a massive help.
This website, it was like Neo reading the Matrix. Like it was great predictive analysis. I knew where everybody was going. I was seeing everything.
You guys all had your drafts already, right?
I had one, a little warm up. Like the schedule, a nice little warm up draft. One that you don't value too much, but you got to just get one in. I just told you Michael Pittman.
What did you eat?
It was.
Do you eat or drink during?
Well, it was live. It was a lot. It's my one live draft of the season.
So you drink?
I drink a little.
A little bit.
I honestly didn't drink a lot. If like you are really asking,
no.
I didn't get.
It's like an interrogation.
Yeah, no. I ate though. I ate more than I drank. I'd say. Yeah.
Smoke?
You know. A cigar.
I was going to ask if you all had your drafts because something happened in mine that I feel like might be happening in a lot of fantasy drafts this year, which is Cordell Patterson just staying on the board like 3 rounds past when he's projected on.
But he's that guy. Once everyone takes him, people are like, "Hey, that's the number one. It's a good pick."
Yeah, is he RB1 though? They got this rookie that they're excited about. There's like, why is he? You get,
but in the 6th round, you're excited.
Drop and you're like. You start searching on Twitter.
He dropped like 3 rounds.
Yeah, he dropped late in mine.
And I just think it's because people are confused about him positionally. Like he did well last season, and everyone's like, he's not going to do that again. What is he really going to do this year?
Now, this year, I sort of call it the Broncos receiver conundrum, which is, do you really want to have the most boring player in fantasy?
Yeah.
Because if you have the receiver that's playing with Drew Lock, that receiver is not going to have big games.
But now it's different.
Might give you the 5 catches for 77, and you get your solid 12.7 points in there, but you're not going to have spectacular. So you're looking at your board and going, I'm partially playing this because I want to make money, and I want to beat my friends at this game that we all agree on. But I also would like to have some fun rooting for the people that I have on my team. And I will not be rooting or having any fun with the Broncos wide receiver this year. That changes with Russell Wilson, but I feel like this year it's like Washington receivers or Detroit receivers. Like maybe there's some fun to be had there.
There's always a David Montgomery there that you want. You don't want to take,
like,
but it's like God. He's
so boring.
I have my list here of top 300, and he's still there. It's like
you ask yourself, do I really want to watch the Bears this year?
Like, no.
And the answer is no.
No, I don't.
You don't.
The most undervalued players, I think, are guys from Seattle and Pittsburgh because you knew what to expect from those offenses for so long, and now those same weapons are there. Claypool's fallen in drafts. DK Metcalf has fallen in drafts. Tyler Lockett's falling. All these guys that you could always count on them to give you these certain numbers. You take the quarterback out of the equation, and now it's to the point that I think they're undervalued because then you start asking yourself, well, someone's got to get the numbers. Someone's got to get him.
Jeremy was telling us about his draft, and he uttered the sentence, "I got Rashad Penny as my RB2," and that made me sad.
Yeah, that's tough.
But it's a flex. It's a deeper league, so I'll cut him some slack.
I have no idea who RB2 in Seattle is, let alone like for your fantasy team.
Is it still Travis Homer?
Homer and DJ Dallas both had excellent preseasons, but they drafted Kenny Walker, who, when he's not DJing for Y100 or calling Dolphins games in the stadium, had a terrific year.
I believe he's on Kiss 99.9.
Yeah.
No, he's on the beach.
Yeah.
Kenny Walker.
He is. I mean, let me tell you something. Kenny Walker, he's always on Y100.
Yeah, I agree.
I am 36 years old. Kenny Walker is anchoring afternoon drive on Y100.
I had a live draft, like I said. The worst thing, something you would think is the worst thing, is getting heckled on a pick. You walk up, we have the stickers, put the sticker up, and that's not the worst. I'm here to tell you. The worst is just silence. Because you walk up, you generally have a thought about your pick. You're like, all right, people are either going to think this is a stretch. You have your thoughts on how the room's going to react, so you're kind of listening. You just want one person to be like, oh, good pick. Good pick. And then it's a win.
And then you put Darnell Mooney on the board. You're like, nobody gives a singular
I put
shit.
Chris Olave.
Olave.
And I was
you don't
like,
watch college football
big
without
CFB
telling me.
guy.
You don't
yeah, I don't want to say that. I know he's an Ohio State guy. He's fast. But I read an article. But I'm telling you,
that is the whole basis. I drafted Antonio Gibson one year purely on the basis of they really like him as their number one.
Oh, I love reading an article. You got to read an article like right before the draft.
Oh, and then
or a magazine.
Yeah.
I'm always drafting. I'm always drafting this week, this Sunday, and there's usually games going on, and usually during the draft, there's someone that gets hurt like as the draft is going on, and this year kind of happened. It was very unfortunate, the carjacking attempt with the Commanders running back Robinson. He got shot several times. It looks like he's going to be okay, but he got shot several times after he got drafted, and you just kind of like you see the game of telephone that goes throughout the draft. And you're like, oh, God, it's always going to happen to somebody. T's and P's, by the way. That was terrible.
But I got silence on Olave. I walked up there. I was like, someone give me he's fast, decent pick, could be big, deep threat, Jameis. Like, just say something. Just give me
Someone
something.
read the same article.
Say
Fast,
a
Ohio
word.
State.
Just say, someone make a noise. Like, ooh, something. I had just silence. And I was like, I just had to say something. I'm like, he's going to be good. Like, I like.
Good. Big things. You start applauding your own
You'll
pick.
see as I'm like walking back.
Sleeper. You start putting your hands to your head. Ooh, get ready to go to sleep, Jeff.
Top 5 round pick next year.
Yeah, remember this one.
How much do you feel responsible for the heckling? Like you have to provide 1/10 or 1/12 of the heckling, right?
I'll throw somebody a solid pick. If I hear silence, just to give them something, even if I don't think it was a solid
You do
pick.
hate silence.
Yeah, it's like, at least hate my pick. Tell me it's terrible. Just don't give me silence.
So you're the same around your friends as you are in here.
Yeah, I hate silence.
Do you ever during the draft go, how's this going?
For my team. I think I just like look at my team and I say it to myself.
How long is your draft? Do you have
It was
timed rounds?
No, you can't do time.
We've
picks
gotten away from
live.
time picks.
How do you do time picks live? What's the punishment? What's the auto pick?
2 minutes, and then it later around 60 seconds, and then you steal. But now as we've gotten older, we don't have the energy to steal or man the clock.
Oh, I've never.
so-
Yeah, it's more just like heckling.
Yeah.
But to Chris's point, what's the penalty?
No,
You can steal a pick.
Do you
Apparently.
do you forfeit a pick?
no more
Maybe the
penalties.
next guy can just go up and grab stickers.
The older that we get, the longer we want the draft to take. I think in most cases, it's just people don't want to be
Really?
around their families. So it just
In your mid-20s, you wanted to get it over with. And then
Yes.
your 30s, you're like, let this last as long as you can.
Yeah, I 2-day draft. Next year
Yeah.
is my 20-year anniversary, and we're already laying the groundwork. 3-day event, 7 rounds a day, destination draft,
We meet up every Friday. The draft starts in January.
1 round, untimed round. Take all the time. Actually, go to scouting trips. We'll have a combine. We'll have a fantasy combine. But you out there, I care. So please hit me up in my mentions, Chris. Let me know if you're feeling
You're gonna
good.
regret that.
Tell me about that 4th round pick.
No. If I can help you too. If you're a super follower and if you're unsure about Patrick Mahomes,
I see what's going on here.
I mean, they've fallen off a little bit. People, I notice out there every time I lose one. I notice that you're going through your settings and you're hitting unsubscribe. Shame on you. I need people to subscribe. And also, I can't access any of the revenue at all.
Why? Wait,
no
what do you
one,
mean?
no one at Twitter's answering my questions.
Do they just have all your
every
money?
time, yeah, it's just sitting there. And anytime I send a message to Twitter or send an email, it's always like, well, this is an unmanned position, so sorry. Go to the facts. I'm like,
But you
can't
still want
get
people
a
to
person on the
subscribe,
line.
even though it's going into Twitter's coffers. Currently.
Twitter's the only one that's actually getting anything out of my super followers. I have not gotten a single dime. I have gone through the payroll website, and they keep it. I always feel like I'm getting somewhere, and then it always ends with email Twitter, and every email address is not an actual person. There's no way to get money actually from Twitter, but still do it. Super follows at Michael Ryan Ruiz. So many great nuggets. I went to a UM practice. No big deal. It was a closed practice.
Look at me,
I feel really good about the team.
So not that closed.
No, it was very close. it was super close.
Perhaps the most closed.
Never seen a practice more
Are
close
you
than
allowed
this
to
one.
describe anything that you saw?
No, can't do it.
But he was there.
But I was there.
look at me,
Did you talk to Coach?
I talked to coaches.
look at me,
Blink twice if they looked good.
Here's one thing that I think I can say is I remember when I went to camp last year with Whitty or in the earlier years, and there'd be a couple
To an open practice.
Yeah, to open one.
look at me,
I didn't get the invite for closed practice this year.
Not many do.
look at me,
But remember when we were walking through just last year, and we're like, who's that? Who's that guy? That guy sticks out, and he's a true freshman. He's Chase Smith, but you see the body type, and they stick out.
He's a third stringer now.
Yeah, and he still is. He was last year though. But like one of the bodies is like, oh my God, who's that? And you look at your roster sheet, 94, it's a punter. But this year, those guys that suck out from a body type perspective do not stick out at all. Like they're just a much bigger team, especially on the trenches, and the staff is like 3 times the size that it was before. There's really good energy, and there's plenty of time to get into college football season and specifically the Canes on other local hours. But I just wanted to tell you that I was at a closed practice.
look at me,
Very excited for the season.
What's your strategy when betting games that your team plays against these very small schools where the line will be like 50?
Well, I was fading FSU regardless, and I was a little worried once I saw the height on that dude's pants.
I unfortunately found out that was just a visual trick, and he had a red undershirt on under his jersey.
I still want to believe that dude's pants look like
Yeah,
that.
I'm going to believe it.
Yes.
I don't care what you say.
Right.
This is my truth.
It's Duquesne football. I don't
Yes.
need to have integrity about the facts here.
Yes.
Oh, what is that supposed to mean? Don't be mean to the Dukes.
No, I'm being mean to FSU because FSU failed to cover. So that's ultimately like I want to believe that FSU.
I come from a long line of Duquesne grads, Whittingham.
You do? The Dukes?
My grandpa went there.
Are they the Dukes?
Yeah.
Yeah. They got to be a little bit more creative than the Duquesne Dukes. I got to tell you. It's just they're the Duquesne Dukes, right?
No, they can't be.
Hey, what do you mean they can't be? What would you name Duquesne?
They are the Dukes.
There you go.
What?
Why did you doubt me? I'm literally, my family's from Pittsburgh. I told you my grandpa went there.
I presume that was a colloquial nickname, not this is the actual nickname for the team.
I thought you guys were just Stugotzing it.
Right.
Like, Duquesne, the Dukes.
Well, regardless, FSU failed to cover the 41.
Regardless, I was at that close
As
practice.
soon as the rain delay happened, you should have known.
Yeah.
The rain delay always
Yeah.
smacks things out of whack.
Dan Le Batard.
And finally, abstaining from food for 16 to 18 hours a day could be key to treating a variety of health conditions like stabilizing blood sugar levels and increasing resistance to stress.
Stugotz.
Mike, are you doing something like this right now?
I lost a lot of weight doing intermittent fasting and low carb, so now I'm getting back to it.
But how much in that 6 to 8 hour window, how much can you eat? Unlimited?
If I could just eat unlimited, I'd do that. That'd be fun.
For 6 to 8 hours.
You can't eat unlimited.
Try me.
No, I mean,
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz.
We're presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code DAN for a special offer when you sign up. That's code DAN, only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
Can we talk about the most predictable college football result maybe ever? and that's Nebraska
Nebraska.
losing. Why was it 13 points? I was so confused by
It was
all
a
of
terrible
that.
line.
It was just a vintage Scott Frost game.
But everyone saying that made me think, all right, I got to bet Nebraska because everyone's kind of nervous about this game.
It was so inflated
I'm 0-1
that
on
it did that it did scare people away. But if it's a neutral site game, I'm going to take 13 points against Scott Frost. He hasn't proven any damn thing.
And the
out
margin
there.
of victory for all of their games, the majority of their games last season was so small. Like their point differential in the last, I think, 10 games or something is like -2, like of the games that they've lost by one score.
Is that CFB Reddit stat true? That if Scott Frost won his next 50 games in Nebraska, he'd still have a worse record than Bo Pelini?
Yep. I mean, I was looking at Nebraska's so on Wikipedia and on like the college football pages, you can look at like the record by coach by year. I was looking at it the other night, just browsing, and I was like, wow, Bo Pelini, that guy,
67-27 at Nebraska.
a lot of double-digit win seasons.
He never had a season worse than 9-4.
This whenever I talk about Nebraska, I get really sad about the Canes because I realize that Miami's last national title win, let's not talk about the one that didn't count, the last national title win came against Nebraska. So for the same period, Miami has been as irrelevant on the national scale as Nebraska has. But it feels like it's been 50 years for Nebraska. And that's just how bad Jonathan Vilma hit Eric Crouch that one time, I'm guessing. That's how bad that beating was in that Rose Bowl game.
I remember watching that, like, I was 9 years old watching that Rose Bowl. And even still, I was like, holy shit, one team is obviously better than, like, a staggering amount of difference between the two teams.
But that was in this century.
Yeah.
That Nebraska was playing for a national title. And they have just gotten further and further away from that. Coincidentally, they've had a Martinez at quarterback ever since that game. And it just hasn't panned out for them. I can't believe Scott Frost can't possibly make it through this season. He cannot.
It depends. I've heard that if they make a bowl game, he will be fine. And if they win 7 games, he will definitely be back. I don't know. This was one of the ones that they had to win if they want to get to that 6-game mark.
He was a 13-point favorite. It's Northwestern. You know exactly who they are. You know what their ceiling is. That is, their ceiling is never what their ceiling is. The floor in the eyes of many Husker fans. They have this really passionate fan base. You'd think that NIL might give them some sort of path to becoming nationally relevant again, but it just feels like we're further and further away. And I don't ever see Nebraska being that destination program that it was before. Nebraska cut its teeth and became this legacy program because everybody in the high schools ran the same scheme that the college football team did. Nebraska football had an identity from college football on down to Pop Warner. And as offenses expanded and we had the spread in college football offense, they just got more and more archaic. And now they're just a team without an identity. They have this huge pass, but no future.
But the wild thing is that, like, I really thought that Scott Frost was meant to come in and bring, like, some level of offensive genius. It was the offensive coordinator, Chip Kelly. His offenses were amazing at UCF. And yet this team, every time I look at their numbers, they're like fairly pedestrian offensively. And then he's after the game blaming his offensive staff for not being creative enough to, quote, win in this league.
They did just hire Mark Whipple from Pitt, who did a really good job with Kenny Pickett's breakout season last year. And he's supposed to be...
Can you have a breakout season at 27?
I mean, he got drafted in the first round. He was a Heisman candidate.
I
Like, he
know.
was one of the best. He was the best
Because he was
college
7 years
football
older than
player
everybody
quarterback
else.
last season that was draft eligible.
I guarantee you that if we put in Steve DeBerg right now against Duquesne, he has some sort of
How
advantage.
old was De'Ara King last year? he was like 50.
But in 2018,
it's not that easy.
De'Ara King had a great year in 2020 because he was much older than everybody else.
Mike, did you do this though with Burrow? Where you said
Yeah.
because he was older than everyone, it might not work out for him in the pros?
I didn't say not in the pros, but I
Yeah.
said it had to be a distinct advantage. Think about
for
like
sure.
Gerald Willis. When Gerald Willis had in defensive tackle for Miami had a season for the ages. He was like 5 years older than everybody else. I think that there is something to that, especially in college football. You've seen it with Burrow, you've seen it with Pickett, you've seen it with De'Ara King. age gives you an advantage there. But you mentioned Mark Whipple, and it once again reminded me that Pitt is actually reigning ACC champions, which is random and also very sad from the Canes prism because we've only been to Charlotte once. We didn't get shut out. Thank you, Mark Richt, for that late game field goal. That's the most. Oh my God, it was so embarrassing out there. I was already driving back to Raleigh when we kicked that field goal. But it just goes to what the expectations are at the University of Miami now. It feels like the big leagues out there. They feel like they finally put the resources there. The energy is just totally different. The size of the staff is totally different. It feels like it's a professional operation right now. And no matter how this season goes, I know they're thin at wide receiver and all that, the floor in their eyes is Charlotte. Anything less than that is an immense disappointment for this staff. And we said that year in and year out, but we were talking ourselves into the Coastal. What's going to be the dumb one that they're going to drop? And they're probably still too young. This is a recruiting-based head coach. Believe it or not, I'm not going to be like super high on the Canes. If they win one of these big ones, I'll be a madman. But I'm thinking 3 losses. The 2 that they're supposed to lose, 1 out of conference against A&M, 1 dumb one. And hopefully that's enough to get you into Charlotte and then start stacking success for this recruiting-based coach and program that Mario Cristobal is trying to build. This is not like Lane Kiffin coming in and wizardry and we're going to just out-tactic folks.
But that's always been the super frustrating part of being a Canes fan is that there is no scenario in which in a division that you're playing with Pitt, North Carolina, Duke, Virginia, and Georgia Tech, you can't beat them every year. Like, even with bad coaching, even with substandard recruiting, like, I know that the recruiting is going to reach an entirely another level now that Mario Cristobal is in town, but even with the players that were here before, they should have been able to easily take care of all of the teams in their division. For whatever reason, they always seem to lose that away game at Virginia every year, and it's incredibly frustrating.
It's because we were learning on the job with head coaches that just had never done it before, that thankfully, they're actually pumping real resources into the program. But that being said, they still had more resources than everybody else in their division outside of maybe North Carolina. They were still, Miami not caring, Dr. Frank not really knowing what was going on down there. They were still top 10 in the nation in terms of resources they pumped into football, and they got those results. So naturally, I have PTSD. I want to get the hell away from this conference just because I'm terrified of the likes of Virginia, and that's not really why we got into it.
There's a lot of new coaches in the Coastal, though. So that might, including Miami, but that might work to Miami's advantage this year. Like, Virginia has a new coach. Virginia Tech has a new coach.
Yeah, Virginia Tech, I'm kind of bummed. If Miami stays in the ACC, which is a huge question mark, I happen to know that Miami is treating this year as it's their contract year. Miami knows that if they handle their business, if they don't get embarrassed in these national spotlight games like they had been under previous regimes, they bring value. They are the real prize. A good Miami is the crown jewel of the ACC. I just have zero evidence of that because they haven't been good. But they're sealing the market that they can clear. They talk about Miami as a throw-in to the likes of these Big Ten and SEC deals, and that should not be the case. Miami is a major market. South Florida is a major market, and it's a prestigious program. And I really hope to God they get it turned around, because you can say this about USC, you can say this about Notre Dame, and you can say this about every Florida school, really. When they're good, the sport is better. It's just a fascinating dynamic down here. It's always a fascinating story. If they're in the national conversation, I really hope sincerely they are. I don't feel that way about Nebraska. My life has been fine without Nebraska.
I'm sure Nebraska people do, though.
Right,
No,
exactly.
I'm sure,
yeah, I'm sure like in the Midwest, like, oh man, if Nebraska were good, if college football is so much better.
I wanted to come back to Nebraska because we have a UCF alum. You were there when Scott Frost won a national. I'm not even going to do it. No, they didn't. They didn't. All right, come to the microphone. Because
He's been wanting to get on since we started bringing up Scott Frost.
Well, Scott Frost
he's wearing a UFC shirt, by the way.
UCF.
It's Monday.
Yeah. But Scott Frost was the hottest coaching candidate in the nation, and he was the prodigal son. Because if he had his druthers, if he didn't have the attachment to Nebraska, there's no way in hell he's picking that job. But he was returning to the school he once quarterbacked for, and it was a slam dunk. Nebraska finally has the cheat code, someone that actually went there, that respects the program, that knows what it can be when it's clicking on all cylinders, and it just hasn't worked. But it worked so well at UCF. Jeremy, why did it work at UCF, but not in Nebraska?
He had athletes and speed in a conference that didn't play any defense. Let's be realistic. The defenses they were going against were bad, but the difference was the quarterback. Like, looking back at it, Josh Heupel wasn't this great coach. He went undefeated with Mackenzie Milton. Mackenzie Milton was a really great college quarterback who had Gabe Davis and Traquan Smith, 2 NFL wide receivers.
Oh, I'm very high on Gabe Davis.
I got him like 6th round,
He
I
was
think,
my first
7.
wide receiver that I took.
What?
Yeah, first wide receiver that I took.
Wow.
I didn't take a wide receiver.
Heavily on Gabe Davis.
I did not take a wide receiver until round 5. Tony told me that this is the year to do that because it's super deep.
It is a deep wide receiver. Yeah.
And so what I was doing, it was like I was scared of the guy that had Josh Allen. He was picking right next to me, so I was like, "All right, I see you." Yeah. I was scared of the guy that had Josh Allen, and in my league, if Josh Allen completes a pass to Gabriel Davis, Josh Allen has half the points of that transaction. So I want to start getting the weapons for all the big time quarterbacks that I'm fearful of. So Gabe Davis, I don't know, is he that guy that we saw in that playoff game against Kansas City? Yeah. I can't tell.
I think he is, but I'm also obviously incredibly biased. But between having those 2 skill position players, Jordan Akins was an NFL tight end. Like, you had a bunch of NFL skill position players and a ton of speed in the backfield on that team with a quarterback who turned out to be a really, really great college quarterback that everybody thought Scott Frost made, but looking forward, he played well with Heupel too, and Heupel wasn't obviously a great coach.
But who made that program then at UCF?
I mean, I cannot argue George O'Leary, so it has to be Scott Frost. He came in and started recruiting a bunch of kids from Orlando who were all 3-star recruits who were really, really fast, and you could put them in the AAC, and that year, given where they were defensively as a conference and where they stayed, it made a lot of sense that, look, they won a lot of one-score games, too. It's the opposite of what's happened to Scott Frost in Nebraska.
Yeah.
They won a bunch of games close and then blew out some teams scoring, 60, 70 points.
Yeah, it's almost as if, like, all that juju has evened itself out, but he's had a different program, and now he's losing the one-score games. Is he just not recruiting the same kids? Are those kids just like, yeah, I'll just continue going to UCF?
That's exactly what's happened.
You built a good thing here, and just because you're Scott Frost doesn't mean I'm going to follow you to Nebraska.
Absolutely. They got some kids to go out there, but realistically, all those Orlando kids that were 3-star kids stayed. Now Gus Malzahn has turned it into some of those 4-star kids in Orlando are starting to stay. So it's really crazy that ultimately Frost leaves after beating Gus Malzahn at Auburn. And now Gus Malzahn is the guy who went, why are you leaving there? I'm going to go ahead and take over what you had.
Do you want to say Mackenzie Milton again? Because you didn't reach your quota.
Mackenzie Money Milton.
Okay.
All right. So let's try to fix Nebraska.
Turning his mic off.
Jess, how do we fix Nebraska? Do they need to just go back to the option? I do think that they need to get...
I think
get Paul Johnson in.
They've been... Oh, God. Yeah, that's not going to do it. They've been in most of the games that they've lost and just have not been able to finish games. Like, they need to stop getting cheeky and cute with onside kicks.
That
they
was
need
so
to just
stupid.
Don't let Northwestern have 200 running yards against you. Like, that's really pathetic. Just stop with, like, win some games. Like, stop giving up fourth quarter leads.
Just fix it. Just fix it.
They were close all last season, and it was there's a lot of people wondering, is it bad luck or just like a coach who doesn't know how to manage the end of a game? And if it's the latter, like, you can fix that. You can get better at that.
Well, yeah, his quotes would suggest that. It's almost as if he disassociated himself from all the decisions that came into play. When you lose a score by one game, you can hyperanalyze it, and it can come down to coaching decisions, and there are just far too many of those for Scott Frost. And if we're spitballing, by the way, and we're trying to fix Nebraska, there are no bad ideas. We cannot discount returning to the option. We just can't. I think that the only way, it does have prestige. It is a Power 5. It is a part of this Big Ten conference that is going to have the greatest television deal in the history of college football. It's not a bad job. It's just not sexy. And they got the sexy candidate. It hasn't worked out. They need to get one of these like coaching lifers that is not going to lose you a game tactically. I'm telling you, a guy that doesn't get an opportunity anywhere else. I'm talking about the Cutcliffes of the world. And just go over there and just continue being David Cutcliffe.
Wasn't that what Mike Riley was supposed to be?
And it wasn't. If you look back at Mike Riley, I bet you Nebraska fans are longing for the days of Mike Riley.
No, they're not.
No.
They're not. They're not. You look at they were 4-8 in their last season.
I have an idea, though.
They're longing for Bo Pelini, though. I can tell you that. Like,
I think Nebraska fans have mixed opinions on Bo Pelini.
they went 9-4 every season.
Yeah,
now
but-
it was 9-4. every season, but that's who they were.
Nebraska fans don't want to be 9-4 though. They want to be like Miami fans don't want to be 9-4. You want to be in national title games.
Try me. 9-4 in the Coastal. I'd talked myself into that over the last 15 years.
Fair enough. I mean, maybe they do. Maybe they're so fed up that now 9-4 sounds appetizing. But I think the answer to all of this is pretty obvious.
I was so brainwashed by all the Blake James bullshit and all the excuses that I was totally resigned to. Okay, compete in the Coastal. Let's get to Charlotte. Get to Charlotte 8 times in 20 years. That's fine enough. Thankfully, I shook myself out of that, and Miami's on its way to being a program that would never be okay with 9-4, hopefully.
We also had no evidence that they would display the ambition that they've shown in the last 9 months. None. There was no evidence that the University of Miami was going to spend crazy on coaches, on assistants, on recruiting, on NIL, on facilities. We had no evidence that this was possible.
You know what? And I covered this like over the fall when I was reporting on the Cristobal stuff. It legitimately was nobody asked. Blake James just didn't ask for the resources.
But like
he always assumed the answer would be no. And it took the Herb Street thing for it to finally land on, and Herb Street tried that like 3 times on College Game Day. He had gone viral with Kane's Twitter plenty of times. For whatever reason, that one really resonated, and it made Julio Frank say, hey, what's going on? And that to me is so frustrating. So frustrating because it was literally that. They weren't paying attention, and they didn't have the leadership to ask for the resources. That's all it was down here.
Well, and that's in some ways why hiring an institutionalist like Blake James was potentially someone who is going to have that ambition stop, because I presume they'd asked before, right? Like there was always this reputation that Donna Shalala was never going to give them that amount of resources, and that would continue under a new president. But that new president was so academic focused. He just never, and so once all of a sudden the University of Miami is in national headlines for their president not caring, it's like, oh, that's interesting. Why don't we try and do something about it? But that whole confluence of events, like I don't think it can be underestimated how much that pressure from Kirk Herbstreit, from local media, completely changed the fortunes of this program. Because it's not just that they haven't been that in recent times. They've never been that, ever. When they were winning national championships, they didn't have resources that compared to other big programs.
I appreciate, real quick, I appreciate what you did there, because you said from Kirk Herbstreit, that he got from local media. That got it from us. They did. It's the truth. He lifted from Barry Jackson. Barry Jackson listened to the local hour that week.
Look at me,
Herbie's back on the Canes, by the way. Death, taxes, and him picking them to win the Coastal.
Well, Herbie's got a lot going on this week.
Yeah.
It's an interesting week for Kirk Herbstreit.
A lot of time on the tanning bed, yeah.
A lot of tan. There's like, there were 2 instances where I was like, what's going on there? It was Kirk Herbstreit and Tom Brady, who is slowly transforming into my abuela Juana. And I think they're seeing the same colorist. What is happening there? I threw it out there and it was a conceivable, like everyone kind of bought my theory that part of this time away was he went back into the shop and got some work done. But then that post-game press conference, I don't know if
he's
it
like,
was
I got
lighting.
a lot of shit going on.
Yeah. Brother, you do.
I've never heard that from like the best quarterback ever. He's just like, listen, man, this last couple years, it's been a lot.
This incredibly committed professional who throws during vacations in Cabo to make sure, in March, to make sure that his arm is just right for the NFL season. 3 weeks before the season starts, just goes, yeah, I had a lot of shit going on.
I love that. I love that.
Like, I know
it's
that
the most humanizing thing he has ever
And he
said.
dropped his age. Yeah. I'm 45 years old, man. I have a lot of shit going on.
I felt that in my bones. It was the one time that I finally got Tom Brady.
It's like, dude, you have 7 assistants. Right. You can't have that much going on.
You have enough money. Again, his income is the second income in his home. And somehow he has like, oh, I gotta take care of some stuff. Like
he had to run to Whole Foods.
The whole thing sounded like Stugotz. Like, I've been dealing with this from Stugotz for 6 months. I recognized every part of the speech pattern. From, yeah, buddy, I'm old and a lot of things are going on.
Down to him being gone for 11 days. With
unannounced.
As a surprise. He had trouble closing his mouth. Like, his mouth was swollen. The hair is super dark, and we know that he's been coloring it, but it's full. I was scrolling through my timeline super fast. I'm like, why is Meg Ryan in front of the Tampa Bay
He was
Bucks?
smiling the entire time, even when his mouth was moving. He's like, yes, I got a lot of shit going on, guys.
But the jawline has been super. It's almost as like he like He sprayed it a little bit, and it's
You like some contouring?
you gotta let it breathe a little bit, though. Everyone knows this about the Botox. It takes 2 weeks to settle. I guarantee you, come Sunday Night Football, he's gonna look great.
The color, though, was really the most disarming part of all of it because it kind of made me think, was Tom Brady going to be a graying quarterback? And would this be actually more impressive if he were a graying quarterback?
He should lean into it because that was part of why Brett Favre's year in Minnesota was so impressive because he looked 73. He looked like a haggard frontman from a rock band that had its glory days 30 years ago and was playing the state fair circuit.
Like, would Tom Brady look like Len Dawson if not for all this plastic surgery?
Telling you, his hair is white. You could see the roots. It is white, Jess. He's got Ric Flair white hair under there.
All I'll say about the hair is the middle part. Like,
What's with the middle
he's
part?
He's really been watching TikToks lately.
Yeah, the middle part is in, isn't it, Jess?
Oh, the middle part has been in.
Yeah.
But the middle part is usually in if you have longer hair. He kind of has a Zoolander, but there's just a part in the middle. It looks like a bad wig. I feel very uncomfortable. Me, who, I mean, when I got out of bed this morning, I lost my balance and fell right back into bed. And it was just because I took a step too quickly.
Fantasy draft, Dano.
Yeah, it was. At Michael Ryan Ruiz, if you also reach on Gabe Davis.
Who's your defense?
The Browns.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the only Brown that I took, and this is like the reverse logic that I'm using. I like worked myself into a shoot because Nick Chubb was there, and I love Nick Chubb, one of my favorite players ever. And Joe Mixon was there. I'm like, I got to force myself away from this. I'm gonna take a stand. No Nick Chubb, and then like three.
But you couldn't pass on the defense.
No. But I needed defense.
Couldn't pass on Joe Mixon.
No, but I take Joe Mixon, and I'm like, I feel like satisfied. I'm like, yeah, did a virtuous thing there. And then 3 picks go by. I'm like, shit, he did something in college. What was it? Google. God damn it. There's just no one clean in this sport.
No. Now, this is the local hour, and we have yet to cover the Zapruder film studying of Tua's first pass of their preseason game at the weekend, in which he hit Tyreek Hill down the field. First play of the game. Hal Wingo tweeted, this is, perhaps his, most accurate quarterback ever, could have hit him in stride. Dolphins fans in Tuanon were out in full force.
Remember that one time when Patrick Mahomes underthrew him? It happened, I promise. Check week 6 2 years ago. That's what they did.
That's curious.
I saw every pass Patrick Mahomes has ever underthrown this weekend.
I can't believe, every Dolphins avatar, I cannot believe what is happening on social media around this team.
The Tuanon campaign to discredit Patrick Mahomes, of all people, over the weekend. You don't have to say Mahomes is bad to lift Tua up. We don't need to go that far. It's a very bizarre tact. But yeah, when you have Tyreek Hill, a lot of balls appear underthrown because he was just so fast, and he works that to their advantage. He had the walk. It wasn't a walk-off, but it was a game-winning go-ahead touchdown against Cleveland last year in week 1, where it was just chuck it up, underthrow. Hill will make the adjustment. That's what the speed does. No one knows his body better than Tyreek Hill. And so he knows that he can break back on a ball, and sometimes it's tactical, and sometimes it's just an underthrow. And those are the great receivers, the ones that make you look good when you don't put the ball right in the breadbasket.
It's hard to know what to take from preseason because it's are the Eagles playing guys? I don't know who's playing. I don't know what means anything. But all I know is the Dolphins offense, there looks like there's a lot of space. Even when it's not Tyreek, other guys, it just seems like guys are open, and that to me says scheme. So I'm excited. The preseason, I'm as excited as you can be watching something that doesn't matter because this could all be nothing and they could be terrible. But in the preseason, I see a lot of space on the offense. So that makes me excited.
To tap back into a theme of our show having a lot of influence and reach, have you seen what's happened with Gesicki since we talked about him? I mean, he tumbled in my draft. No one knows what to do. No one knows what to do with him, including the Miami Dolphins, who apparently, after listening to our local hour, were like, hey, we should call some teams because this guy's obviously not a fit for this offense.
So you've got all the teams just all listening hardcore every morning.
Yeah.
All right, before we get to work, let's all listen together. Yeah. It's like their breakfast.
So you think Nebraska is going to hire David Cutcliffe now?
Oh, my God. But run the option. Yeah.
Paul Johnson's going to get hired and run the option there.
Have you guys you guys got me thinking about this. Did you guys ever play pickup tackle football back in the day?
Yeah.
In high school, a turkey bowl and stuff?
Broke my arm on that.
Man, we could have if I would have just figured out a triple threat option, Like the triple option.
Oh my god!
No,
Like,
it
imagine how
requires
that
way
would have
too much-
played.
way too much
But if I
coordination.
did it though,
Way too
imagine
much
how, like no
coordination.
one would have been. No one has gap discipline in pickup turkey mode.
I love the idea of like you're playing with your friends and you're diving at their ankles to clear the lane for the B-back.
Look out for the fullback dive. It's always fucking there for Paul Johnson. Yeah.